France just to come here. So welcome everybody.
Great. Daniel, thanks a lot to you, Victoria. What a great time, and really thrilled to be on stage with fantastic panelists. Bringing together social media, payments, and identity is really where it's at, and central to what we're all going to be doing in the future. Again, I'm Charlie. I'm from Avast. The company was founded in 1988 with the theme of digital freedom. And amazingly, 1988 to 2020, 2022, we're back to this theme of user sovereignty and digital freedom. We're going to explore in this panel really the hope for Web3, the promise of Web3. Are we headed in the right direction? Are we finding ourselves with kind of bullshit claims going on in the industry about this from big platforms? What can we be doing about it? We've got three very innovative companies that are kind of center stage to the true, really true decentralization, and really looking forward to it. I'd like to first point out to Andra, who's the co-founder of Distrikt, a decentralized professional social media network. Max is the co-founder and CEO of InfinitySwap, to really swap tokens across blockchains, hold tokens in an application wallet. And then Dan is a new entrant in the race for digital identity in Web3, really foundational and critical to actually make things go. He's the founder of Identity Labs located in New York. So I'm going to turn to our panelists, Andra first, then Max, then Dan, for a quick intro of yourselves, your company, your direction, and your opening statement.
Thank you. Distrikt is not only a decentralized professional social media network, it comes with a cool twist that I think in the Web3 industry or in the blockchain industry, we all kind of hoped for a long time, which is everything is 100% on chain. So no reliances on Web2, no centralized third-party implementations. Distrikt, everything including the assets of the user, everything including all the data of the user, lives 100% on the internet computer. And this is what got us excited about starting this project, and the fact that this means that we can give the user autonomy, sovereignty, and the right to decide about really key things regarding their digital presence and social interactions online. So Distrikt also, I would like to point, is a project that's being sustained and maintained and developed by the Open Internet Foundation, which is a Swiss not-for-profit foundation. And our mission has been very clear since the beginning. We want an open, decentralized platform where users feel that like they get their power back. Thank you.
Hi guys, yeah, Max here from InfinitySwap, and we're essentially a DEX platform which is targeting the cross-chain space. So right now on Ethereum, what we've seen is this proliferation of layer 2s, proliferation of coins on lots of different blockchain ecosystems. And we're leveraging some really amazing technology in the cross-chain world, built on the internet computer, which will enable you to swap coins, tokens from different blockchains in a completely decentralized way. Funded by Polychain Capital through their Beacon Fund, as well as a few other high-profile VCs. And I think what this kind of technology really enables is for creators, for communities to create their own tokens. We've seen that, and we've seen the growth in different communities. And for me, sovereignty is all about enabling the community to own and own the value that they've created. So that's the promise of tokenization. And having all these different blockchains are kind of like their own different tribes in the Web3 space, and their own different groups. They all want to create value. They have an engaged, excited user base, and We're excited to kind of bring them all together through our DEX application.
Let me first say it's surreal to actually meet you in person because I've only seen this guy on video. So that's awesome. Andra, I met you a few times, but Charles also. Damn COVID. So a lot of us are here because we really believe in Web3. We believe that Web3 is going to usher in a new society. And we, at Internet Identity Labs, are building the infrastructure for people to become citizens of this new society. And taking a step back, civil society has evolved over time to help people thrive and survive within it. But the system that it operates in suffered and has always suffered from human concentrations of power. And it's always made worse with bias and corruption. It's a human problem. With Web3, what we're all doing, what we're all building, is we are refactoring the flows of power and providing people with agency. What we're doing with Internet Identity Labs is building that infrastructure and building the interface through which people will execute and express their authority, express their agency. And so how we feel about sovereignty is actually twofold. There's user sovereignty and there's internet sovereignty. Andra and Max both have talked about the sovereignty that a user has within their applications, within Distrikt, within the social media application, within the DEX, with the sovereignty of their tokens. And that is sovereignty as a user of that application. It's the authority that they have, that the individual human has with that application. What we're concerned with as identity is not just the one application that a user has sovereignty with, but across all applications that a user should have sovereignty with. And that's how we view identity, from that lens, that ultimately what we're building is the interface through which you will express your sovereignty across all applications. And for example, you want to switch hospitals. It's a huge pain in the butt to actually provide data from one hospital to another. We all know this, we've all experienced this. And the sovereignty that you have is the ability for you to just share the data that you want with the next hospital without granting another hospital permission. Or if God forbid, there's a war in your country, and you're escaping violence. Sovereignty is the solution to the problem that you can't have your resources be portable, that your money is custodied by banks, that your credentials and your critical resources are custodied behind other applications that you're used, or that you use. And in so many words, how we view sovereignty as a whole, not just as a user of one application, but as a human being using all applications across the internet, is that you have an interface through which you express your authority. And ultimately don't require permission from anyone but yourself in order to do it.
So Dan and Max and Andra, thanks. So I think for the rest of our chat now, we'll talk about the P word, the promise. And I think we would all tend to agree within this room that this notion of user sovereignty is where we want to get at. We're not there today. I think wonderful, wonderful innovation going around in the world for a number of years. How do we bridge that gap? How do we cross that chasm? And do we find it hijacked by big tech? I've seen enough being talked about where big tech, in the veil of really, really slick Silicon Valley marketing, is beginning to recast some organizations as decentralized. I might claim fake or false or bullshit decentralization. And I'm wondering your views on this. Like, how do we take innovative, true Web3 user sovereignty views and turn the tide? How do we get there? What are your views on crossing that bridge? Maybe Andra to start.
I think this is a very interesting question and a bit dangerous. Like, how many people am I allowed to piss off? It's, I would say, because you mentioned in the beginning something about, the first instance of the internet, how funny it is that we now came full circle, right? And I always think about Wikipedia and Web 1, and that basically the Web 3 promise is just the recycled vision of the original internet, where we could have peer-to-peer communication, and we went from, we kind of need to go back to the basics. I think it's where I'm getting at, and remember that shift of power when we went from being communicated at from a television screen or a radio to communicating back via the internet, and we did a switch, and we, like, suddenly, even as consumers, as citizens, as everything, we had a much more powerful forum to express our opinions and take agency over what's going on. And somewhere along the road, basically Silicon Valley came and glorified words like value capture and the middleman economy, and made them sound like the dream of every tech entrepreneur. And I had that dream, and it was weird to say the least. Like, my previous startup failed in Web 2 because I kind of read all the books and aspired to all the things that the tech entrepreneur was supposed to do, and I kind of found them empty of meaning and empty of value for the user for whom I was doing all this and losing, precious sleep and investing all my energy and money and time, and it just wasn't worth it. So Web3 for me, even as an entrepreneur and as a person that wants to serve a certain demographic and type of user, I think its promise and its sovereignty lies in the fact that we need to let go of our ego and just get out of the way and build something for them, make sure we don't fall into the trap of thinking we're necessary in our users' lives, and start from day one with design decisions. We were very lucky at Distrikt. The team we put together from day one only made decisions according to our values, and most of them are here in this room, and they know, like Kasi there, she's our head of design, and she designed the product, and from day one, we knew exactly what we would allow and why we wouldn't, and kind of stuck to it even if it was hard. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's an experiment that's worth doing, even though you maybe don't know if you're going to be as profitable as you would be if you would value capture, which is parasitic, by the way. Like, get rid of the parasitic mindset as an entrepreneur, and it trickles down.
Well, Andra, you mentioned the tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley came in and kind of hijacked all these terms, but my question is, why did it work? And why is it still working? And I think the answer is because the experience is really good for people. People really appreciate that. Like, a one-click sign-in is a dream. And we don't have that with Web3. Like, it's so hard to onboard anywhere. And I think until the experience of onboarding, the experience of using it, the experience of really appreciating Web3 is simple and intuitive, no one's going to do it. People they trend towards convenience. That's what we've seen. And these Silicon Valley folk take advantage of that because that's what people want. They want convenience. You ask them in studies, do you want privacy? Yes. Okay, do you use Google? Yes. But you just said you wanted privacy. So it's this convenience part that I think is the big stumbling block in Web3 right now, and something we have to get over. People need to be able to get in and experience what it means, not just because of the fact that it's available to them, but because it solves their problems, and solves their problems in a seamless way. When we get a seamless way of solving people's problems, of having portable identity, of being able to have access and own all your posts on Distrikt, of being able to swap your tokens easily, instantly, and permissionlessly on InfinitySwap, and being able to take this anywhere without anyone's permission, and you not even knowing that you're doing this. It's just like available to you. And with one click, you do this. You don't have to be signing every transaction, waiting for things to either succeed or fail, and then if they fail, you have no idea why. Maybe you lost internet connection, maybe something else happened, you have no idea. But this experience is a huge obstacle to adoption.
And Dan, I'm almost reminded now of the pre-95 power that existed with Microsoft, and all of a sudden we began to see Amazon and Facebook, and they won because it was cool for people. And so I think what you're saying is, for us to kind of win, it's not about selling self-sovereignty, it's selling cool stuff for people. I think that's the point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one cares about something that's uncool. That's not very cool.
Max, your view on this, and in thinking about payments, how do you get to cool?
How do we get to cool? I mean, I think blockchain is cool. I think crypto is cool. It enables you to kind of share whatever token, whatever ecosystem. It could be a degen play, it could be an NFT, it could be whatever else. It's definitely, what is hip right now. And I think what it comes down to is the fact that a lot of these tech giants, people in industry, are trying to hijack what is cool for their own marketing purposes. And in so doing also, I think they're kind of twisting the ethos of what blockchain was all about. Because when, in the early days of the internet, as you said, Charles and Andra, you got this sense of the world opening up, like anything was possible. You could do your own startup, you could create something new. And we kind of got that same feeling with blockchain as well, and the world of crypto. The hegemony of the incumbents was being broken down, and a new world was being created. So I think the question also comes down to, like, how does the crypto world kind of organize itself, create the kind of governance structures that are needed to actually ensure that they vouchsafe exactly the kind of principles that they want in the crypto world, crypto community. And that's part of a grassroots effort as much as it is about ensuring that user experiences are really nailed down to a T. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the thing.
So when we think about the old world and how they got started, I mean, Facebook started with something simple. It was sort of grassroots, and I can talk to you, you can talk to Dan, Dan could talk to Andra. We can kind of share stuff, and there was no business model, and that kind of got going. And Amazon lost money forever and ever and ever doing what they do, selling books and then selling stuff. So the question is, what ends up fueling the promise? Where does the money ultimately come from doing great stuff? Is that centralized in the old way? That is, the venture PE community is going to get behind small, innovative, really, really cool companies. Is it grassroots behind it? What's the model? How do we get to commercial success? Because at the end of the day, we know money in one form or the other is going to be needed to fuel the innovation, I believe. But maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
I would just like to come in there, because I think that's a great point. We think of things as being VC driven, big money flows in to drive innovation and progress, and yet that's the exact opposite of the software world. You've got an open source community building great things on Ubuntu or whatever software stack, and the progress really is grassroots. So I think there is kind of room for both. And it really comes down to, even what small entrepreneurs can do, with their startups and in making progress in the field.
And I think we already can see a few case studies in the Web3 ecosystem where we saw massive, how can I call this? An influx of VC money in certain networks that made them experience this massive growth that wasn't organic, and that was at a very accelerated pace. And that's very hard to sustain. It's not impossible. many of them could continue to be successful and be like one of those few that are going to be, you know, the new Web3 giants. But you kind of see where they're at, what they're doing, and how that affected the whole health of the network. Whereas we have very little examples of networks and dApps and that went the other route, mostly because it's, compared to other industries, honestly, it's ridiculously easy to raise capital in Web3 with a good project. It doesn't have to be great. You just need to be a hard worker. And, you know, you have a fairly good chance of getting funded. That's not a bad thing. We need to fund innovation. But we haven't really seen, you know, a bottoms-up type of project that kept to it and didn't reach the point where money was thrown at it and kind of spiraled a bit, if you know what I mean. I think that would be interesting. We're kind of trying something similar. Distrikt is 100% self-funded, and we intentionally decided to go this route, even though it is a big bet. It's a huge bet. It's not just time, money, and work. It's also our own capital. But it was because we looked at the entire ecosystem. We were privileged enough to be in a position to be able to do so. And we decided that this experiment hasn't really been done as far as we know. And it actually has chances of working out very well and be successful. So maybe will be that case, hopefully.
One of our identity maxis, because that's what we are, we're identity maximalists, and yes, we do have that Twitter handle. He likes to talk about the data model for the internet. And he likes to say that for over the last couple decades, really since the beginning of the internet, the data model for the internet has been very much an application-centric perspective, that the data exists in applications. But Web3 inverts that model. And the data model in Web3 ends up being an identity-centric perspective, where the data is with the identity, that the identity is the holder and owner and ultimate authority of all that data. Now, I mention this because in Web2, if we learned anything, it's that data is extremely valuable. And so in the context of your question about how, like, where is the value created, how can we monetize, just where's the economy? It's with this data, as it's always been. It's just that now the data is inverted. It's a new model. And so when it comes to identity, from our perspective, the only thing that really changes is who gets to profit from all the data, from all that value creation. And it's the identity. It's the human behind it. So you have now an opportunity in Web3, and this is why it's hard, because the data model is inverted, to create models that put the individual in the middle. And so let's take even advertising, for example. That is the economic model of Web 2. In Web 3, it doesn't mean that we can't have advertising. It just means that it's the human whose data is being sold by these other tech companies that ends up profiting from it. And they get to decide how much of their data they want to sell, at what price they want to sell their data. And these are just conversations and topics that we could not have in Web 2 that we can have now. So we have opportunities to develop these new economies because there is an inverted data model.
So it's interesting, Dan, this fellow Doc Searles, who you may have read about, had written this book, The Intention Economy, quite some years ago, before we were even talking about Web3, and I think you're almost alluding to this notion where we just turn models completely on their head. Listen, we've got a few minutes left, maybe in kind of rapid fire view. The promise of Web3, let's fast forward 10 years from now or to 2030, 8 years from now. Where's the world going to be at? What do you think we're going to see? Maybe Max, starting with you, then to Dan and Andra to wrap up.
Yeah, I think the world's going to be a much more open place in terms of people building financial applications. So all the protocol builders, that's really accelerated the rate of innovation and progress in the financial sphere. It's an open world. You know, it's no walled garden. It's not like the big banks where they have their proprietary tech and you don't have access to it. It's an open world where anybody can plug into a protocol for lending, borrowing, whatever financial application, copy trading. They can build and make their own improvements on it. And ultimately, it's transparent to the user. So, your money, you know exactly what you're doing with it. You can see what's happening. You own it much more than any other kind of centralized application. So I think that's the direction of travel. And I think that's going to be a much better place for financial innovation and user sovereignty.
I don't know about 30 years from now, but certainly our vector, our North Star, and the real root of what it is that we want to achieve, I think all of us in Web3, is a better world. And how do we get there? Like, what is that vector? What are we working towards? And with that, I think we can even look towards Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there are things that people need as a basic, as basics, physiological needs. They need to survive, they need to eat, they need to love, they need to have esteem, and they need to self-actualize. That's just like being able to realize your full potential. And that is that's civilization progressing forward. Every step that civilization takes makes these needs easier for people to attain. And what we ultimately all want as individual humans to attain is self-actualization. So perhaps not 30 years from now, but the only way to get to self-actualization is to break all the barriers that are obstacles for us to get there. And those are now these central authorities that are preventing us from being able to get there in a lot of ways. They're creating obstacles because there's bias, there's corruption within systems of government, within all central authorities. Until human decision-making, bias, and corruption is removed from all of that, then we can't all achieve this sort of like enlightened sense of human spirit. But that's our vector. Whether it's 30 years from now, probably not. But that's where we're going.
Andra?
I would say the biggest promise from the point of view of a social media platform is privacy and owning your own data, controlling how it is managed, and also governance. So basically deciding if the algorithm that Distrikt would like to use to show you posts is okay with you and you like it and you approve of it, which is an option that you don't really have right now. And this is, I think, one of the root causes of misinformation. So people could have an agency regarding updates of the product itself, which will happen by the end of this year with Distrikt, actually. This is exciting. And 10 years from now, tokenized, autonomous, sovereign communities. So imagine Facebook groups where you don't have any middleman, where your community can be reached without paying a fee to Facebook. Because right now, even if you have an organic audience that you built yourself and you want to communicate with them, Facebook and other platforms actively block your communication towards them unless you pay them advertising fees, which is basically a mob shakedown mentality that we can get rid of in Web3. So this is why Distrikt is called Distrikt, because you're going to be able to spawn up your own district, tokenize it, give it to your community. It's going to be very empowering for small businesses to build around their products and services and be autonomous. Put the A back in DAO because it's not there right now.
Great, thanks. So it's about building in the bear market and breaking the mob. Yeah. Thank you to all of you. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.